It's being live streamed.
Do we have a new song?
We don't yet. We're still attributing to Matthew.
Smooth. Yeah.
He's still with us in spirit.
Sup, everyone. Yes, MMC is with us in spirit. We miss you, MMC. If you're watching, hearts, big hearts, big hearts. Carrie, welcome back. Joanna, welcome back. And Effie Warden, welcome to Straight Up Positive.
Hi.
We are 2 weeks from this thing that we have been talking about since January. Joanna, I know you are excited because you are going to be playing a big part of what? What is in 2 weeks?
The conference is actually, just to get technical, 13 days because it starts on Sunday and goes Monday and Tuesday. Just saying. Wait a minute. That's like even less than 13 days. Can't count. It's like 12 days.
Math is so hard. That's why I'm a social
It's hard.
worker. Yes. You know what? At 2 weeks, this time in 2 weeks, we will actually be coming live from the Gem Show from our finale of conference. So, wow. So much work has been put in behind the scenes. So much work has been put in by our speakers, all of our self-care break facilitators, all of our PAC team members, all of our core team members. And I promise you, it's going to be an awesome conference. Now, if you go to buy a ticket, because ticket sales are still happening every day, you go to our website, just as you've always done, but you're actually going to be directed through Hoova to buy the ticket. I don't think it'll feel that different. You'll still go through teepasnow.com. It's just a slight redirection to the Hoova website. But now's the time to do what? Now's the time to start getting familiar with Hoova. Joanna, have you gone and played around on Hoova? Carrie, have you played around on Hoova? Because I have a confession. I have not played around as much as I should have.
Shelly was supposed to play with me. I'm just saying. Shelly's not playing with me.
Aw, Shelly is great at playing with others, and Shelly has created an awesome tutorial. And we are going to have on our help page, which will be coming out, going live any day now, where we have a tutorial from one of our live tutorials of Hoova. So you can watch that and learn all the things about Hoova. Is that what you were going to say, Carrie? I saw you unmute. That we have a video tutorial. Because some of us are more novice in Hoova, and some of our friends like Shelly are more accomplished in Hoova. But don't be afraid. It is just the platform. Like we use Zoom as a platform for a lot of our meetings and things like tonight. It's just the platform for where we're meeting since we can't be together in person. So yeah, 2 weeks from today, we'll be wrapping up and giving lots of virtual hugs. So that's what's our big announcement for today. And Joanna, I know that you are getting slated for several different talks. I know you're going to be with Loy and Matthew on a segment. And I know that I heard you might be doing something on the first day with that Teepa Snow lady. You were just busy.
I just go where I'm told to go. I just, I follow directions.
You follow directions.
Usually, yes. And I'm so excited. It's going to be so great. We have so many wonderful things to help everyone in the dementia community, whether you're family or a care partner or staff working in a facility, just there's something for everybody, even outside the dementia community. There's literally something for everybody on the planet, right?
Everybody, because this
Everybody.
the premise is all gems can shine, that whether you're living with brain change, a family member, professional, whatever your connection is to dementia. And that's what's so unique about the PAC conference, is that literally 1/4 of our registration at this point, 1/4 of folks who are registered for our conference are living with some form of dementia or some form of brain change. And that's just really unique to PAC and really, really, really cool, and something that we celebrate. And yeah, thank you. We love that. And Carrie, we're actually bringing our friend Matthew back, because we're going to take this little straight up positive thing and bring some of our friends back and celebrate them, and bring them back to talk about previous straight up positive episodes and kind of what are you doing now, then, and now. So that'll be a fun thing that we get to do together on Sunday. Anything you want to talk about with that session?
I'm looking forward to it.
Carrie, the woman of few words. All right. Yes, it'll be fun. We'll get the band back together, as they say, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. All right, so that's on Sunday, but we have a packed 2.5 full days of conference. But without further ado, Effie, we want to roll into talking with you. And as always, on Straight Up Positive, we like to shine a spotlight on folks in our certified community. And it was fun because you and I met in August. You were recertifying, and we really had nothing to do with Straight Up Positive, but by the end of our conversation, as you were doing your recertification, I said, hey, have you ever heard of Straight Up Positive? Because I'd really like for you to be on. And so you kind of got wrangled in that way. So welcome to Straight Up Positive. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what services you provide?
Hey. My name's Effie. I am a licensed practical nurse working in long-term care. So I work in a facility in what most would call probably a remote location. I'm on Vancouver Island on the North Island. So it's quite a large community, but being on the North Island is quite remote. So we have a really interesting population of people who live with us. So I would say probably 85 to 90% of the 102 residents who live here have some form of dementia or brain change. But a lot of it is actually happening in British Columbia right now in Canada. We're having a really horrible time with the overdose crisis and fentanyl. And so we're actually starting to see a lot of people coming into long-term care in remote places because there is nowhere else for them to go with anoxic brain injuries as well. So we have our youngest person here is about 27, our oldest is 100. And so we have this massive difference in the population. And it's been really interesting lately because we're seeing the people who are, on the younger side, really having a hard time with some of the behaviors of people who are further along in their dementia. So it's been a really interesting time. And then, of course, throw COVID into it, and that just throws a wrench into everything. So yeah, I've been here for almost 14 years. I got into healthcare quite late in life. I actually kind of stumbled into long-term care after my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and kind of going through the whole journey from diagnosis to death. And realizing just how, as good as our healthcare system is in Canada, we have a free healthcare system. That's fantastic. There are so many things wrong and not user-friendly that I decided that I needed to do a job that when I went home at night, I felt like I actually made a difference in someone's life. So, I kind of was walking down the street one day and walked into a local college because there was someone had told me about a program actually called Care Aid, Health Care Aid. I didn't know anything about it. And that was on a Friday afternoon, and I was in school on the Monday. And so I kind of went through my care aid, did about 6 months, and went, no, I need to do more. And so I did my licensed practical nurse, and I'm actually just finishing my 4th year of my Bachelor of Health Sciences. I actually didn't want to do my RN because I love long-term care so much that RN actually limits me in what I can do. So yeah, so that's my kind of my journey. And yeah, so it's been a really interesting time with all of these different different diagnoses and things within a facility.
You said you were seeing young people, Effie, like
Our youngest,
27?
yeah, our youngest is, I believe, 20, in between 27 and 29. She's been here a couple of years now. And then we're also seeing, we've got people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. We have a lot more people who are coming in with earlier onset dementias. Yeah, it's interesting. And because where I live, we don't have like group homes, we don't have other different kinds of places for people to actually get the services that they need. So everybody gets bulked into long-term care, which isn't the right solution, but it's all we have at this point. And then to top it off, I also live in a community that's extremely heavy on an aged population. So we also have a huge shortage of beds in long-term care. Our staffing levels are really low within the community, so home care isn't always an option. So sometimes we're seeing people coming into long-term care who probably don't actually belong here yet, but the services aren't out there. So it's been really, really interesting, especially over the last couple of years, just with throwing COVID in, because in my facility, we actually kind of shut down all of the different units when COVID hit, thinking that if something were to happen, it would be contained to one unit. And what ended up happening was we ended up putting, our biggest unit has 39 people in, like, I don't know, 3,000 square feet. I don't actually know how big it is, but 39 people in one small area really shows you how, different gem states don't always work well together. So we had all these different problems that we never realized that we were going to have. And so it's really shed a light onto, some of the work we need to do, not only with our staff and our families, but also with our other residents who are cognitively able to understand. So we're kind of starting to work on that. Yeah.
Wow. I'm wondering what that journey was like for those people who don't traditionally fit the mold for the population that generally starts to get dementia diagnoses. What did that look like? I mean, I'm curious, what are the dementias for those people under 65? What are you seeing in your?
We're seeing, well, so for dementia wise, we're really seeing all early onset Alzheimer's is usually, sometimes some vascular. We have at least one frontotemporal that's like in their 40s. And then, like I said, lots of substance abuse. So lots of like Korsakov's encephalopathy, those alcohol and drug related dementias where it's a lot of frontal. So yeah, so we really have this really interesting mix of people. And when you go into, whoever wants to come and live with 101 other people, like I can barely live with someone else. So I can't even imagine coming into communal living, and here we are with new rules and, taking away their independence. And, sometimes it's really hard to watch. It's the best that we have right now. But it definitely, it sparks a passion in me, and that somehow we need to change this. And if I can't change the system, which although I feel like I could run the world, I need to at least change what happens here. So, yeah, no one's going to vote for me for prime minister, but I'm okay with that. I just want to change the world here. So, working with my staff, and with that, I do a lot of work with families as well. So I have my consultant and my coach. I tend to, at this point in right now, I do a lot more consultant work than I do coaching, just because of staffing shortages. You know, I work in I don't work in direct care anymore, but I'm always in direct care because there's always someone calling in sick or something's happening. So I get pulled to the floor a lot. So I can do a little bit like when I'm on the floor, but I do spend a lot of time with families because honestly, they're the ones that are really struggling right now. So, you know, we've been really liberal with our visiting and things like that, but you know, they're seeing these changes in their loved ones. And, you know, I don't know about in the States, but in Canada, there's like the image of long-term care is absolutely horrific because of some of the things that happened in Eastern Canada. So, you know, that's what everybody focuses on. And so I want people to know that, you know, life isn't over when you come to long-term care. This is not where anyone wants to come and live. This is not anyone says, when I get old and have dementia, I want to come live in long-term care. No one says that. But if you're here, let's just make the best of it and try and find some quality. And yeah, work together so that it's not home, but can we make it as home-like as we can? So that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I'm currently in a short-term facility doing rehab, and you know, my family is all on the East Coast, so it's all friends, and it gets very confusing just letting guests in. They're like, "Are you a family member?" Like, these are all my chosen family. They all should be able to come up.
Absolutely, and the rules change every day. There's a new flipping rule every day, so you're never really sure who can come in. And now once again, I don't know about everywhere else, but we have vaccine passports, and we have angry people about vaccine passports. And I'm now at a point in my life where I put my fingers in my ears and la 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 because I didn't want to talk about it anymore. It's just like So, you know, trying to help our families to kind of navigate the fact that they're not allowed in our building. If they don't have a vaccine, they don't get to come in. There's no excuse. So now what do? How do we still keep them connected? And so we have a great team that's working on that. We do, you know, video conferencing. We actually have we got those microphones like that are at the drive-through, and we've attached them to the window so they have window visits and they can still talk to each other and be close. But you know, it's just things are hard, and trying to find that quality is definitely been a struggle, which I'm sure it has everywhere.
Yeah, just kind of interesting timing for our friend Carrie, who, you know, is you're talking about different age groups, and you kept saying no one wants to be in long-term care or even short-term rehab, and you know, the systems that we have in place. But what I like about you so much, Effie, is that you say, I can't change the system, but I can change what happens in this part of it. And so I'm dying to show some pictures that you sent us, but before we get to that, I want to start with a couple of things, which I always want to know. How did you first hear about this lady, Teepa Snow, and how did you get involved with the whole PAC movement? Because you said you actually have two certifications. You have coach and consultant. So how did you get connected with PAC?
So I got connected, interestingly, I actually knew who Teepa Snow was. I found her kind of on YouTube. And what I really liked about Teepa was she just says it like it is. And that's who I am. So don't give me the mumbo jumbo, give me the reality. I'm good with it. You can say it however you need to. I'm going to be okay. I'm not too delicate. And I just loved how she was able to, you know, really just convey a message, and it made sense. It was like, oh, okay, well, that's what you mean. And it wasn't something I learned in school. So even going back to the Care Aid program, they do not teach you about dementia. They teach you bits and pieces, but a lot of stuff is not focused on the person living with dementia. It's focused on the worker. And so how do you keep yourself safe? Like, if you want to drive me nuts, tell me that someone's being aggressive for no reason. Like, you'll drive me. Ask the people who work with me. I think I turn purple. So hearing all of this stuff from Teepa, it really resonated with me. I didn't have a lot of experience with dementia. My grandfather did have vascular dementia, but I was like in my early 20s and didn't really care about anything at that point. I was too busy doing my own thing. And so like I'd go and visit him in long-term care and not really think much about it. It was a hospital. He lived in a room with 2 people, but he stayed in it. He was kind of like in a bed all the time. So I didn't think too much about it. And then, like I said, I found Tifa, and I really liked her and I followed her. And I'm also a kind of person who firmly believes if you don't ask for something, you're never going to get it. So I ask for a lot of things, hoping I'll get some. And I happened to see Tifa was coming to Victoria, which is about a 3.5 hour drive south for me. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm all in. And so I went to the management and I said, she's doing this course for something called a consultant. I don't really know what that is, but it says it has something to do with families. And I recently just had my job changed. So another thing about where I work, it's a very small nonprofit facility. So I, as the nurse, am also the social worker. I have no experience as a social worker. So I have no schooling as a social worker. I've taken an intro to social work class. So, my job was to deal with the families. So I saw this, my manager at the time was like, heck yeah, done, go for it. And so myself and one other nurse went down, and taking my consultant, honestly, for me, it was transformational. It changed everything in my practice because it just made sense. And when I came home, I'll never forget the experience. I love the fact that, there's something very special about Tifa. I love that there's all these different pack people now, but there's just something about Tifa that, she can say things that other people can't say. She can do things. And I really like that about her. And so, I took my consultant training, really not knowing a lot about what I was going to do with it. And then came back to where I work and tried a few things. And everything I tried worked. And
so Effie, I'm going to pause you for a second because I really want to dig into what you're saying, because we use words like transformational. And so I tried these new skills, and I'm going to ask you to dig into that hippocampus. Is there anything is there anything specific you can think of that was a new skill or something from that course that really changed your practice?
Yep. The most basic stuff, actually. It was the first, because I had a specific resident actually in mind, who was kind of he was the I guess you could say the problem child. Lots of behaviors, lots of aggression. And the very first thing she said I sat in a chair at the front of the class, and she started walking up to me doing her PPA, and she did her hand, and I didn't put my hand out, and she actually stopped. She did her timeout, and she stopped me. And because apparently I didn't even know I had done the full body turn, highly introverted, get the heck out of my space, which is exactly what this resident did. And she said to me, wow, you're really introverted, aren't you? And I kind of stopped and was like, I actually would probably consider myself extroverted, but okay, I'm introverted. And then it just went from there. So thinking about people, she went on to say, is a person introverted or extroverted? If you want to get down low, she was giving tips and things like that. And then she went on about the left and right hand dominance. And I'd never even thought about that. But, the side that you approach people on really does make a difference. Yeah. So there was that. Then it was the humanizing parts of it. So looking at, this particular resident, it was a gentleman. He was quite a formidable size still. He had, I couldn't tell you what kind of dementia he had, but he also had hydrocephalus. And so he had a shunt. And so his behaviors, when he woke up in the morning, he'd be yelling and screaming. He wouldn't let anybody do care on him, but he'd be soaked from head to toe. He'd be hallucinating and talking about people drowning in the river. And so all of that stuff was in the back of my head. And Steve was kind of teaching through the day about, the positive approach. And even just watching the videos before taking the class was like, ooh. Because when I stopped thinking about the person as someone living with dementia and started looking at all the little things that were happening, the products of the dementia, I was able to go, whoa, hold on a second here. We're not approaching this in the right way at all. Let's try something different. And so when I came back from my consultant training, he was the first person I went to. I talk him out of everybody who works here knows my story. I went up to him. I did my everything I needed to. I got down low. I approached him on his dominant side, and it was like night and day. We had a conversation. And so I would do that in the morning for him because nobody could get him dressed because he was just so violent. So looking at things like, here's the soaking wet man. Okay, what's his unmet need? What's that unmet need that he has? Well, is he hot? Is he cold? I'd be freezing cold if I woke up in a pool of urine. So going and getting the hot blanket, putting it on 2 minutes before you go in and do care, and then coming back and reapproaching, and he would do anything for me. And people had kind of written him off as, yeah, no, he's mean. And, so having the ability to identify all of that and be able to put it into words is something that, Tifa really taught me through all of the training, even through her videos. But the other thing that really stuck out with me with the consultant program was talking about grief and just the grieving process, and really thinking about, like, nobody wants their loved one to have dementia and to be in long-term care, and to, I guess sometimes I say, and I know this might not sound right, but sometimes I say I feel lucky in some ways that my mother died quite young from a disease that I was able to communicate with her right up until that last moment. And so to watch these women and these men who come in every day to feed their loved one, and they relive that loss over and over and over again. And people don't identify that they're grieving every single day. They're grieving the loss of who that person was to them. They might still be there, but it's not the same. And so I think those were some of my biggest takeaways from the consultant. And Tifa was already my hero before then. And she gets it. And there's not a lot of people out there that do, in my opinion. And the person living with dementia, I can't even imagine, how they're grieving as well. Usually the people who come into care, at least here, they're not at I don't want to say they're not at an awareness point, but they're not as aware because they're further along in their dementia. But yeah, like it's a devastating disease, and we don't give it enough credit as a caregiver, in my opinion.
So I wish I could I'm curious, Carrie, what kind of activity we have on YouTube tonight. If anyone's watching and could write in the chat how many things Effie just listed off that
I can babble on a lot.
that she took back, because I hear PPA, I hear so many different hand dominance. There's so many different things that I feel like you just listed that you were able to immediately take back into your practice and change. And this idea of grief, and there's no chance that you had never heard of grief. There's no chance that grief was a new concept to you. You had worked in this industry. You had been a human being. So grief was not a new concept to you, but there was something about the way that PAC approached grief in the consulting course that changed your approach. And what Joanna wrote in our chat here, which was how the person living with the diagnosis or the person living with brain change is also grieving. And I'm curious, Joanna, for those of us who aren't living with structural brain change, who aren't living with a diagnosis of brain change, who aren't currently in that situation, is there any advice that you have how to support or help, or anything that you want to share when Effie brought that up? Anything you'd like to share with us or our viewers about that piece about grief?
Well, I thought that was really great that Effie brought that up, because I think that's the thing that people fear the most about dementia is there a worse way to die? I don't know. I don't know if there is, but or a worse, worse way to, live out your the rest of your life. I can say for me at 53 and 5 years in to my diagnosis that, yeah, I had some grief in the beginning, but unless, and I'm going to use this as a visual, unless someone takes me by the hand and walks me to that place of, don't you remember so-and-so died years ago in a car accident, and you're talking about them wondering, then I don't stay in that place. Someone has to take me by the hand and re-traumatize me in order for me to feel that. And then it takes me a really long time to get back out of it. I think people struggle with that because you don't want to lie to the person living with dementia, but you also need to take a step back and realize that if you're in this to support them where they're at, then that's not getting into an argument about what's reality, because actually you don't know that I'm not seeing that person who's passed. I mean, we don't know what's beyond this physical plane. So that's a thing that I think is really important, is please don't take me there. And if I am there, please let me come out of it in my own time. There's times when I'm reminded that I have Alzheimer's and that I used to be able to do this and that and the other thing. And then I move on. It's like the shiny thing over there that the cat sees. And then I'm like, on to something else, seriously. So it would be best if people didn't spend time in that place of guilt and sadness, as far as family and care partners, because that's not where I stay. I don't think that's where most of us stay unless we're intentionally taken there by trying to keep us in reality, so to speak.
I think that's such a good point. That actually makes me just think about one other thing that I loved about TIPA. So when I first started in long-term care, I will never forget this as long as I live. It still makes me cry when I talk about it sometimes. There was this wonderful woman who lived on one of our wings. It was a night shift. And she woke up and she was looking for her husband. And she was probably, I'm going to go Amber Ruby. She was well advanced into her dementia. And the nurse who said, I never lied to the resident, said to her, oh, Mrs. So-and-so, your husband's been dead for years. And I will never forget the scream that came out of that woman's mouth, because she went right back there. And I was like, we didn't need to do that. We didn't need to do that. And so that was one of the other things that I think it might have been in my coaching, actually, where, we really talk about that. Okay, they have a need. They need to talk about that person, but we don't need to traumatize them in that way. And so, you could have said, hey, tell me about your husband. What did you love the most about him? What made him a good father? But instead, here was this poor puddle of a woman on the floor sobbing because she had just lost her husband again. And, I just think that those moments are awful, but they're so teachable. Like that one sticks with me forever. Like I will never, I hope, knock on wood, do that to someone, because I just can't even imagine. And she had no malice. It wasn't malicious intent. She just thought she was doing right. So I think that you bring up a really good point. And we unintentionally do that kind of stuff all the time to people living with dementia. Yeah.
Yeah, Rebecca, as you were saying, there was somebody commenting on our YouTube channel saying that, they have a space for a lounge for a dining room for 18 residents, and always struggling with those people who want stimulation versus those who get agitated with noise. She's used dividers and silent headphones. And this is really like speaking to me because I am that introvert. When I got to now, and I don't have a dementia diagnosis. It was just a physical thing that happened to me that I'm in the short-term rehab. But when I got here from the hospital, there was oxygen on in the rooms, there was TVs on in the rooms, and then there's TVs on in the halls, and the noise was just so much. I just really felt like I was breaking down. And, you know, people would come to visit me and I'm like, I have to get out of this room. I have to get out of this room. And, you know, finally, you know, like my roommate would have sharing a room. So, you know, introvert is already like exploding on half of the brain to share the room and deal with all this noise. You know, I got over the ear headphones. I have earbuds in as well with some noise canceling. And these are great, but I need this all the time. And my ears are tired now from wearing this stuff, just, you know, to be quiet and to like go into a room and still need this in order for my brain to settle down. It's like, okay, this has got to be really hard for somebody who's not able to communicate like what is happening, or is not understanding that the loud noises or a certain pitch, like somebody's cell phone or a walkie-talkie or any kind of microphone, maybe setting somebody off with what is that noise? Just, I can't even imagine. It's already hard enough to be the patient, to have to see this all happening, saying there's not much I can do. You know, we can try and rearrange rooms, but sometimes you just can't.
And you know what's unique, Carrie, is that you know this is short term.
Right.
And how different that is for us when we know, okay, I can do this for 20 days. Okay, I can do this for, you know, whatever. Versus this is my new reality. And you know what's so fun, gals, I'm loving this because I feel like we've actually thrown our complete outline away and we're just having a really fun discussion.
I tend to do that. Sorry.
Thank you, because this is super fun. I have two areas that I want to go. And so I want to piggyback on one thing that Carrie was talking about, because Carrie said to me that over the weekend, a good friend of hers broke her out and took her for a drive on the ocean. And it made me think about Effie's breaking her resident out and taking her to tubing. So that's one thing I want to make sure we talk about. The other piece is, as Carrie and Effie, you're talking about this sensory overload. I know that Joanna right now, a hot topic is the holidays and the sensory overload of the holidays. So I'm wondering, where would we like to go first in our discussion? Would we like to talk holidays, or would we like to talk about breaking people out and going on excursions? Joanna, you want to jump in with holidays, or kind of wrap up the show with that?
I think I'll wrap up the show with that, because, you know, I want to see these pictures.
Okay.
Awesome. So Effie, give us a little bit of background while Carrie pulls up the pictures.
Okay, this is my best day at work story. So it was probably about 3 years ago now. It was a hot summer day. I live in a commute. I'm like 5 minutes from the ocean, 20 minutes to the chairlift. It's a beautiful community with, you know, lots of water, and we do tubing down the river. And it's a very popular thing to do. And I guess there were some carrieds who were down a specific area who were talking about their weekend plans. And they were doing it not with the resident, but above the resident. And this resident had Parkinson's disease and some dementia definitely setting in as well. And she was mad because she was sick and tired of them talking of, you know, having all this fun. And so she came wheeling into the office, and she had tremendous shakes. And when she got mad, she was shaking even harder. And so she came into my office, and, you know, people with Parkinson's, they kind of have that mask face. So you could just see the anger on her face, and she starts to sob. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And she's like, doing that. And, you know, she's like, I hate it here. I can't do anything I want. The girls are always doing fun things. And so I kind of let her unpack it for a little bit. And she kind of calmed down. And I said, okay, so what are you mad about? And she said, basically, she said that she was mad that she couldn't go tubing on the river. And I was like, okay, well, you kind of have Parkinson's, but okay. And then she said something that changed my whole mindset. And she said, the only time I feel free from my body is when I'm in the water. And it was like a light bulb went off, and I went, why can't we go tubing? And she kind of stopped and went, what? And I said, why can't we go tubing? And she's like, you're going to let some old people I can't even walk. And I'm like, I can figure something out. And so I was like, just leave it with me. I'll figure this out. And so I kind of went out onto the floor and was talking to some of my coworkers, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Everybody was like, yes, let's do it. And so someone gave me a suggestion to actually call our local search and rescue. So I got a hold of the Comox Valley Ground Search and Rescue team and said, hey, I have an idea. I don't know how many people we're going to do, but we'd like to know if you would accompany us down the river for a tubing excursion. You could use it as your training for, swift water. And so we ended up with this big partnership. It took, I proposed it to the leadership team, to which the exact words out of my executive director's mouth was, over my dead body. Because right away she was thinking about insurance. So, I had to jump through so many hoops. I had to contact the insurance companies, make sure we were insured, get permission from families, come up with safety plans. Like, there were all of these things to do, but we actually made it happen. And what was really interesting was it was the first year. So we took 6 residents with us, 2 that couldn't walk, 1 that needed walking with assistance, and 3 that could walk, because we didn't do the whole river because we were like, this is kind of crazy. So let's start at a calm spot. So where we wanted to get into the river, we had to go down 10 stairs and onto the riverbed and then launch the tubes out. And so we made all these plans, and it turned out we took 6 residents, 20 staff members volunteered their own time, 17 search and rescue came, and family members, and then other residents who couldn't do the tubing or who didn't want to actually came with our lodge colors pom-poms. And we had 3, we passed through 3 bridges. And at every single place we went, they had the pom-poms and they were honking, and it was crazy. And so in these pictures, her name is Verlene. I have her family's permission to talk. I talked to her daughter yesterday. She has passed away. This is Verlene in the middle, who, like I said, has the Parkinson's mask. You can actually see a smile on her face there. And we got into the river and off we went. And it was so wonderful because search and rescue actually allowed us to let Verlene out of the tube to float and be free. Sorry. It was probably, honestly, the best day of my entire working career. Wow. We had so much fun. Like, you'll see, I think in one of the pictures, you can see like there's stand-up paddle boards, and staff members, or everybody went in a tube. We all went in doubles. Yeah, this is all of our group with search and rescue, and everybody went in a tube with a volunteer staff member or a family member or a friend. And we went, it wasn't really far, but we went when it was low tide, so it would pull us out. But we went further than most people go. So we ended up down at a little, we have something called an air park. So we have a little airport right on the river. And so there's a pathway that you can go up and down and put your a boat launch, sorry. And so we ended up doing the boat launch. And Verlene was so excited about all of this that she actually insisted that we have a barbecue at the end to thank search and rescue. And Verlene was, I miss her desperately because she kept me in line. And so she was very particular. I had to buy this cake and get this, and we were doing this. And so we had a big barbecue at the end for all the search and rescue, and Verlene had a cake made for them. And it was the most amazing day. And we want to do it every year. Unfortunately, the next year search and rescue got called out, so we couldn't do it. And then COVID happened. So we are hoping actually this year to get it going again, and do more residents this time, because it was amazing. Like, people just, even the staff, they took the time off work. They didn't get paid. They volunteered, because we also knew that if you were working, you maybe couldn't, lift people into tubes and things like that appropriately. So we all volunteered our time, and like, we carried Verlene's wheelchair. There were 4 of us. We carried her like, they did with the kings and queens on those platforms. We carried her wheelchair down and then lifted her into the tube. And it was the most amazing day. Like, yeah, it was one of the best days of my career for sure.
Wow. And one of the key things that I know you guys are going to laugh at me because I'm a nerd, and I really grasped onto one of the first things, which was when Verlene came into your office and she was upset. You asked her some questions, and you didn't try to say everything's going to be okay, or
it's not.
Try to fix it or whatever, or just hush. You matched her. What is wrong? Like, and that's such a packed skill, that matching and that curiosity. And you met her where she was, and you found out what was going on, and you used your curiosity as a consultant, and boom. You found out.
Sorry, it actually started, we opened up something called the bucket list, and we went around to residents, and we actually started a bucket list. So like, we had one resident who wanted to go to an air show, and so we found a volunteer that actually took him on a plane to Abbotsford to go to an air show. They wanted to go. We still haven't done a couple. Like, people wanted to go to the gun range, and I was like, I don't know if I can get that approved or not, but so we're still working on it. Yeah, we went to up Mount Washington. They actually have an adaptive snow sport, so we're working on this year with them to do like sit skiing. They did ice skating, so they went wheelchair ice skating with kids from the local school. So we're slowly trying to get all these crazy things, but you know what? In real life, it's not crazy. Why does it have to be crazy for long-term care? So I always tell them, like, give me crazy. The crazier it is, the more I want to do it. So let's bring it on.
I love those pictures. And what you said was, Verlene said that this was when I can feel most like myself.
Yeah.
And isn't that what we want?
You got it. Parkinson's, it's a debilitating disease. And for her just to be able to lie there, and even, the search and rescue guys were amazing with them. It was like, no, sure. Yeah. You want to get out? Absolutely. And you saw how many of it, that was us getting her back in, because it was so hard on the river, and the thing was tipping, and it didn't bother them. They were like, whatever you want, we're doing it. It's fine. So yeah, we ended up, it was amazing. And the newspaper came, and we were on the news, and that was all great. But just to see, I mean, everybody else had fun, but for me, it was just making Verlene a believer that things could happen that she wanted, because she really, really was defeated. Life was over for her. There was nothing there. So.
Well, and here's the thing. When we choose to listen, what Verlene was telling you, because you were willing to listen, and maybe not who was in her direct sphere at that moment, they were talking about their fun times. And how did that feel for her in that moment when they were talking about these fun things, rather than engaging her? Rather than engaging her in that moment, they were engaging each other with her as this like passive person. And
it happens so often.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is the reality. It does happen often.
But she came to you because she knew she had a voice with you.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to give Joanna the voice, because something that Joanna's so passionate about is this holiday thing. We got through Halloween, and I know in my household, we're already like, when can we start putting all the things on everything? Because it's time to start getting blinking lights and candles. And Joanna, I know this is something that you're passionate about, and you had actually asked in the chat earlier to Effie, because she works in long-term care, like, what do you guys do with the holidays? And so where should we take the conversation related to the holidays, Joanna?
Well, it is quite an involved conversation. I know we don't have much more than about 5 minutes, but I I just have a fresh experience as of 2 days ago when my husband and I had lunch with some family who have invited us up to their house in Denver, which is just an hour away for Christmas. My 3-year-old niece will be there. And so they're really going all out, you know, not that their normal decorations aren't just, you know, mind blowing. They're really going all out because that's what you do with a 3-year-old, right? If you do anything less, you know, you're not doing it right. And because that part of my family is coming from out of state, there's a whole bunch of other parts of family who were invited. And it was a tough conversation to have over the phone. And then we had to revisit it in person at lunch on Sunday. And, you know, I really had to let my husband take over because at the end of lunch, I kind of had a meltdown. I thought, I don't really know what other ways I can explain this. And I'm having a hard time understanding how all of this works myself. And I told my husband Forrest later, I said, them, you know, asking us why we can't do this, and don't we want to see them, and don't we want to be together with all the family and see Santa Claus and, you know, my 3-year-old interact. I told my husband, I said, you know, it's like asking someone in a wheelchair, don't you want to get up and dance with me? This is your favorite song. And it really is. You can't see our disability when we have dementia, but that's the best analogy I can give. You would never do that. You would never ask someone who can't use their legs, don't you want to dance with me? This is your favorite song. You'd never do that. So that's I guess in our short amount of time left, you know, it's real, it's fresh, and it's still happening. And I'm just diverting. I'm letting Forrest take care of that part of the conversation because there's just too much. There's too much when it comes to the holidays. And, you know, if someone doesn't want to or can't modify what they are doing, that's okay. I just can't be part of it. And so we're going to have, you know, a nice, peaceful holiday here with the two of us and our dogs. And nobody needs to feel bad for us. And that's the other thing is, please don't project your sadness. I'm having the holiday that works for me. And if you can come down and see me, you know, little bits at a time, maybe 2 to 4 people instead of a dozen, that's joy for me. So anyway, that's kind of the Cliff's Notes version of where I wanted to go.
I think your Christmas sounds wonderful. First of all, that sounds. I don't live with dementia, and that's the exact Christmas I want. And I've gotten very good at putting up boundaries and going, yeah, no, thank you. I don't care that the 3-year-old is having Christmas. I don't want to go. So yeah, in you know what, in long-term care, my facility, we've actually come up with some coping mechanisms. So we have lots of different areas. Specifically, we call it our special care unit. So I guess our memory care unit. We've had to subdue it a lot because everybody gets excited about Christmas, but they don't think about the things that affect our residents or anybody living with dementia. So usually what we do is we do a tree lighting ceremony. So we decorate, and the tree lighting ceremony is usually family and residents, and they decorate the tree. It can be loud. And so the people we know that need the lower stimulation, we actually don't bring them. We leave them to do other activities. Our units decorate their own units. We decorate outside, but we only bring the people that we know it's not going to give them a horrible time. Like, who wants to be involved in that when it's that overwhelming? As a sapphire, that like the thought of it kind of makes my skin crawl, having to go with 14 people and kids and Santas. So, and our special care unit in the last couple of years, I've actually put my foot down and said, no. We cannot do this the same way that we do it on our main unit, where we have lots of people who are still able to participate. And so Christmas on our special care unit is a lot quieter and things go together. Some people help decorate the tree, But what we do, we actually attach the tree to the wall because we know it's going to go walking. So, and we just let our residents, they undecorate it, and then we redecorate it again, and then they undecorate it. We go shopping and looking for all the things. And Christmas Day itself is quite subdued. And we also do our family meal at lunch. So we don't want to get into like sundowning and having those behaviors, you know, escalating people so that they can't cope anymore. So we do a family lunch. So we have turkey dinner at lunchtime. So it's definitely subdued, but there's a lovely ambiance. I work in it's an older facility. It was built in 1982. And it's very West Coast with beams and so the way they decorate is beautiful. We don't have flashing lights. We don't do any of that stuff. It's really more about creating a lovely kind of ambiance for the season. It's less about Christmas. We also have people who live here who don't celebrate Christmas. Their religions don't celebrate Christmas. So it's kind of not as big a deal. The hardest part about Christmas for us is people phoning us constantly saying, what the heck do I get my loved one? What do they need? And it's like, well, they don't really need anything. So trying to navigate that with the families. But we also talk to our family. We have a family council that myself and the other girl who does the TIPA stuff, we run our family council. And this is actually something we talk about usually a few months in advance, just saying like, you don't need to bring 20 people for your loved one. They don't, you know, they don't necessarily need that. Or if you're having that big gathering, record it. Send us the recording and we'll let them watch it, you know, in their time and in their space and at their volume level. So we are certainly getting better about thinking about the resident more and less about the actual holiday. Halloween was out of hand. Like I was, oh my God. Between the costumes that people chose and me just going, really? But we also have some great residents who dressed up. We had a pajama day last week. And so it's really, I hope that we do a good job of making sure to put the residents first. And I do think for the most part, when it comes to big celebrations, we do that. And we don't normally do anything until December. So we have, in Canada, we have Remembrance Day coming up. So right now we have our poppies out and things like that. So we don't even think about Christmas yet. It's not like Costco where everything's out. So I went in there the other day and went, oh.
I know, it's just, it's
too soon.
So Joanna, to be continued, I think that you and I share a passion for this topic. I know that when my grandmother was living with Alzheimer's, we did it all wrong because we did not know better, and it was out of a good place of good intention, but it was not what was best for her. And so it's something that I'm certainly passionate about as well. And so we'll certainly continue to talk about this. And yeah, sounds like Effie, your group is going in the right direction. So thank you for what you shared. And man, thank you for sharing Verlene's story. And if her family's watching, thank you for allowing us to share her story and those pictures tonight, because that is just truly an example of you using your PAC skills, using your passion, using your heart to make a difference in someone's life. And you are truly a positive force out there. So that's all what Straight Up Positive is all about, shining a light on our positive approach to care certified community. Thank you, Effie, for sharing your story with us tonight. We will be back in 2 weeks live from the PAC conference. And then we have 2 more episodes of the year, 2 more guests that we will shine a light on this year in 2021. So the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of December. Effie, thank you so much. Big hearts. Thank you for being on Straight Up Positive. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Effie.
Thanks, guys. It was awesome. It was way more fun than I thought. I thought I was going to be all nervous and crazy.